Hello and welcome to Dharma, or The Dharma, your 2020 Planet Waves spring reading. My name's Eric Francis Coppolino. Happy to be here providing a video reading for yet another springtime. It is finally warming up here in New York, and there were people out on the streets singing today in my weird little town, which tells me they're not in their house and are feeling good. All right, so the idea of this reading, as I've explained in the video introduction I just did, is to provide a context for the astrology that's going on now. And there's a lot of astrology that is going on now, and a lot of it is focused on the sign Aries, and much of what's not focused on the sign Aries is focused on the cardinal signs, which relate to Aries. Then there's a few other things that I want to frame and put into context for you. That's the whole thing with reading astrology. You can have, I don't have any tarot cards handy. You can have all the tarot cards in the world, but unless you have a question and a spread and a way to read them, you don't have any way to get information out of them. And with astrology and any form of divination, it helps to have a question, and the question that I am asking, I'm asking in the form of a concept, which is Dharma, which is how do you find your way, and how do you set your life and your energy up to always be doing the Dharmic thing, which is acting as if to hold the world together. That's the idea of Dharma. And the opposite of Dharma is to act adharmically, which is to rip at the world, which is to do some damage that you come along and make a lot of money to fix the problem that was caused, which we see happening all the time, and which is happening right now. And this is a way of thinking. It is a way of life. It is a way of integrating all of your ideas, and making sure that you are first of all living as if to be together as a person. Right? It's not just about the world, because in so many ways we contain the world. We are this world that we inhabit. We each inhabit a universe with trillions and trillions of entities running around in our bodies and our digestive systems, and we need to think in terms of how to be one being, and that is Dharma. And then acting as if to hold the world together is remembering that we live in one world. And it is very quick on this plane of reality, because of the dualism problem, to jump right into some form of us and them thinking, to jump right into some form of oppositional energy rather than engagement and alignment in some way. And then what this tends to do is it tears us apart internally. And so part of acting as if to hold the world together is acting as if to be an integrated being. I'm watching Jonah's little foots at the bottom of the screen. His bed is right there. His head is out of the view of the camera. And Jonah, and he looks even more adorable with his little eyes popping up at me. All right, so that's our Jonah moment. Acting as if to hold the world together. I mean, one of the ways that I hold the world together in my home is my canines and I all eat from the same pot. They don't get special downgraded food to eat. They eat organic food. They're small entities. They're not eating 20 pounds of food a day, and so I can afford to feed them as food is high many ways better, because they have no forays into going out for falafel, and so you gradually, as part of the spiritual path and part of the path of integration and the journey of integration, is you teach yourself how to be one being at all times. You teach yourself how to treat everyone the same way, which means you have to have a fairly high standard for how you treat everyone in your life. You bring your full knowledge and your full talent to every question that you might have, every puzzle, every problem, everyone you encounter. You bring your whole being, and that is part of acting as if to hold the world together. Now, I just did the introduction. Now I'm going to have to put the Aries reading up as or at least part of it up as an introduction, at least as far as this, because I left something important out of the introduction that I'll get to as my second item for the day. Here's the chart that we're working with. Okay, good. And here's how we know we're looking at the Aries chart. It's set for Aries as the ascendant. That's our context. That's our reference point, is Aries in the first house. Every chart needs some form of a reference point. You have to start reading somewhere when you read a chart. There has to be page 1 and chapter 1. And in the case of astrology, page 1, chapter 1 generally is on the left-hand side of the chart. That's correct. Left-hand side of the chart. And what we see here is, let's go all the way in. Chiron. And Salacia. Talked a lot about Salacia. I'm going to talk a little bit more about it in a moment. The fact that you have Chiron in your sign, and we'll have it in there for another 7 years or so, would be more than enough to keep you fully engaged with the process of personal integration and Dharma, and dedicating your life to your healing and growth process. And in the spirit of Chiron, there's also a learning process, and there is also the journey of living through experience, for the purpose of experience, and learning through your experience, and letting this guide you. So there's a high level of attenuation involved with Chiron. Every factor in the world is telling you to pay attention and exist fully within your reality, to seek the understanding of the way that you are in a constant flow and exchange of energy with your environment. That means a flow and exchange of energy. It means a flow and exchange of biological jetsam and flotsam that might be running around, including the trillions of viruses that are loose in the world and that seem to run the entire planet. All the bacteria, all the critters that we eat, everything that we do is one and part of us, one with and part of us. And so Chiron is a path of radical awakening to that. And you've got Chiron in your sign. The whole sign is active, no matter where your sun is, no matter what other planets you may have there. Chiron is seeking to wake you up and get you to fully participate in your reality. This goes for anyone with prominent Aries, rising, sun, moon, or Chiron. You guys are all in your Chiron return now. So that would be enough. We wouldn't need these many other facets of astrology. Chiron is the incarnation of Dharma, acting as if to hold the world together. Spend your entire life looking for your truth, looking for the healing method that will work, finding the way that you are going to be the most helpful, conscious person that you can possibly be. Then there's another factor, a little bit less dharmic, but interesting, and also interesting to take in the context of a dharma, and that is Aries. See that right there? Aries has a 558-year orbit. It spends the most time in Aries. It's been in Aries for about 90 years. It entered Aries in the late 1920s, so about 92 years. In so far in Aries, it's going to be in there for another, I reckon, another 30 years or so. I think it 20, 40, It starts to come out around 2042, I think, along with other changes. And that I think that includes Pluto leaving Aquarius. Hasn't even gotten into Aquarius yet. Aries is the the embodiment of a dharma. Live as if to rip the world apart. Live as if to disorient. And so one of the problems of our time right now is that we are all so disoriented based on this rapid, overwhelming influx of new media, which you are watching me on. So I'm not denying that it's there or complaining as much to say, notice the fact that a huge part of the problem that we have involves the disorientation of society, of culture, of intellect, of our sense of self. It's in Aries. It was discovered in Aries, and in many ways is a commentary on Aries in our times. And so we're living with this disruptive force, this powerful disruptive force that has the ability to be harnessed, but it's not easy because it's when something is kind of wild and out of control, it's not that easy to harness its energy and to make the most of it. You don't have a choice. You have this thing in your sign. It's a very influential indicator in your journey of awakening, your journey of consciousness, and who you are in every way. And there are times when planets are more active than others. There are times when they come under transit. Your Eris was under transit in 2016 when Uranus was conjuncted. That was a hot mess in the summer of 2016, and then 2017 when Uranus and Eris were in a conjunction. We witnessed and are now experiencing the election of Donald Trump, and then we are also experiencing the kind of some are calling it late stage capitalism. I'm calling it early stage total immersion in virtual reality. I mean, the notion we take for granted the fact that I can just sort of like turn on a computer that I purchased on the internet, slightly better than average microphone, and then just suddenly appear in your pocket wherever you happen to be, or you can project me on the wall of your home if you choose to do so. It's only worn bright colors, and that's crazy. This is a complete reorientation of reality, and what it tends to do is, for one thing, take us out of ourselves. It projects us out into the world in crazy ways that we're not accustomed to, and it heightens all this digital technology, all electrical technology, but in particular digital, heightens the central nervous system. All of these things, this camera up here, that's your eye that I've brought into my space. This microphone is your ear. So you are extended in your central nervous system is extended by these technologies. You think of it as me coming to you. Not so. You have come to me. The extension of your ear is right here. See, I can be like, hi, that's very nice. Then I'll give you a little kiss. And that is usually painful. You don't normally get to hang out here in a friendly place. No. What normally happens is you're ripped to the scene of a war, you're ripped into an emergency ward, you're taken to the scene of bodies being buried on Hart Island in the Bronx, you're taken to all kinds of bad scenes. There's very little good news on the fucking internet. It's why cat memes are so popular, because that's the only good, the Onion and Planet Waves are the only good news on the entire internet. And so we seek out these pleasurable things, partly in compensation for the radical instability that all this total digital immersion causes. It is painful. And I suggest we wake up to the pain and the chaos and the confusion, because it's adharmic. It's not helping us act as if to hold the world together. It is ripping us apart as individuals and as a world and as a culture, making us further and further apart from one another. Could they have created social distancing without the internet? I mean, the social distancing that we've been living through is a full creature of digital technology. You wouldn't even have any way of telling people to stay home or for how long to stay home, or to remind them every 30 seconds with your fucking Twitter going off that they have to stay in their house. They would just come out looking around wondering what the hell's going on. Where's the milkman? Where can I go get the paper? I feel like having a cup of coffee. All right. Aries. The reason Aries, this provocateur, is so hot right now is because it's getting a square from Pluto. Pluto takes 248 years to go around the zodiac. Aries takes 558 years to go around the zodiac. That's a long time. And when two things that go that slowly take that long and take that long to go around, when they make an aspect like a square, that is going to last for a while. So this lasts clear into 2021. I forget the schedule of the squares, but there are 7 exact squares. The effect has been building for years. The effect will last for years. And there is a personal message for you about where this shakeup is coming from, and it is from an old model of reality. It's the model of reality that I hope is going going down the drain with the price of oil, which is this top-down so-called reality where we must everything must be ruled with total control and an iron fist and some executive executionary top-down fashion. And if you can tap into that influence in your psyche and recognize how much it serves to pull the world apart, you will have a better way to hold the world together, because you're not so under the thrall of getting ripped apart at the seams all the time. This is not easy to live under these influences, and sometimes I feel like I should begin and end every single article, radio program, broadcast, podcast, and video by saying it's really difficult to be alive right now because there are so many influences that are acting on us in ways we don't even comprehend, and it takes time to comprehend them. And then somebody explains it. Somebody else will say, "Oh, that's bullshit. That's just, that doesn't mean anything." But who cares about what the iPhone did? I get to text somebody. You might want to care. And the Pluto, the connection to Eris and the internet was obvious. It was so obvious at the time of Eris's discovery and naming that I mentioned Marshall McLuhan in one of the first things ever written about Eris, and the first thing that I wrote about Eris in the winter of 2006 into 2007. All right, so this segues into the significant need for you to understand the way in which the influence of your family is connected to the influence of society, and that all of this authoritarianism was basically injected into your life as a young child, and that serves as a source of chaos almost around the clock. The need that humans have to seek the approval of authority is significant, and because the need for authority is coming out of house number 10 for you, with Pluto having spent the last 12 years going across house number 10 for you, you want to understand your relationship to authority, and why it is that potentially you and almost everyone can be told what to do so easily. This is adharmic, and it's incredibly fomenting of chaos, and that's a big part of what we're dealing with right now is chaos. Okay, let's where do we go from here? All right, Aquarius. This is one of two major elements of the Dharma concept as I perceive it in your astrology. Aquarius, as I explained in the introduction, I give a too long talk about Aquarius and patterns in the first video. It's like 40 minutes, and I wasn't planning on quite going down that route. I did, but for as long as I did, but I did, and you'll find a lot of the when I mention the pattern making process of Aquarius, the pattern making property as an energetic property, the thing that takes various gases and turns them into a crystal, which has this definite shape and very strong, hard structure. The thing that creates this kind of a, let's see, do I have it? There's not a matrix. I don't have any pieces with a matrix here, but we've all seen, here's a really good example of a matrix. I forget which mineral this is. Okay, the thing that does that in nature is Aquarius. So you think of Aquarius as like groups and committee and peace, love, and joy and Woodstock and Aquarian exposition, but really think about this. These pieces are sharp. These are exact right angles. Something, not in a factory, natural. Put this together like this. These, unless you smash this, these are inseparable. That's Aquarius. So when you're thinking about Aquarius, remember that it's this crystallization thing that has the power to frost the world with the internet. Aquarius is very active and about to be more active, and it's an important part of every chart, but for you, it's highly significant because it represents place number 11 in your chart. Place number 11 is the place of the greatest benefit and value in an astrology chart for most people. It's said to be in the old explanations the house of hopes and dreams, but it's really where you seek your fulfillment. It's where you seek your social experience. It's where you seek your understanding of yourself in relationship to the world and in relationship to all the people in the world. Once we're done with fulfilling our needs for food and shelter, something important to do, something relevant to do, and having some standing in society are right up on the top level of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right below food and freaking shelter. And there are plenty of people who don't even care about food and shelter. They just want to have status. And so the 11th house confers that, and it's where we seek that. And Aquarius is also about that. You have them both together. You have the 11th sign and the 11th house together. So what is so interesting now is that after spending nearly 3 years in Capricorn, stirring up all kinds of stuff, Saturn has made its way into Aquarius. And so there's a transition here from one form of influence to another form. Where Saturn goes, things tend to kind of gravitate, and experience tends to collect in its direction. Excuse me, and the 10th house version of power is this concentrated, top-down, family-oriented, father knows best or mother knows best, depending on your family. Though the mother's logic is always infiltrating itself into the total experience of of the family. And so one of the things that Saturn in Capricorn has been a confrontation with is mother's logic. This is now moving into Aquarius, and bit by bit, planet by planet, things are going to transition into Aquarius over the next few years, including in 23 when Pluto gets there, and the real fun begins, for which we must prepare now. All of this talk we are seeing about apps that trace us and mandatory vaccinations and all of the use of technology to surveil people is all going to manifest, as far as I can tell, when Pluto touches Aquarius. And what we're seeing now are the early rumblings of it, when we need to establish our relationship to these things and need to think about ourselves and how we want our lives to be in the context of these things, and then ask ourselves if this is what we want and the extent to which we are willing to go to participate in this or to consciously resist it. Do you want your child or grandchild to be, or you, to be tagged with a thing that proves that you're immune from the novel coronavirus? Do you really want that? Do you? And then if there is a mandatory vaccine, pardon me on a rant here, any medication made mandatory can lead to any other medication made mandatory. So what if for some reason someone sampled your genetic code, which is what shoving the swab up your nose is, and they decide that you might have a birth defective child, which is going to cost society lots of money, therefore you're not allowed to reproduce. Can I have that? It's been tried a lot of times. Now, as they said at the beginning of the $6 Million Man, we have the technology. And so the question is, one of the key dharmic questions in your life is, how do you relate to all of these technological advances that are being made? Okay, a couple of more very important points on the idea of Dharma. One is, and these mainly involve the retrograde planets. One retrograde in the spring, Venus retrograde in Gemini, entirely in Gemini, no sign crossing, and then Mars retrograde in your sign in later in the year. Really, the first major event of the Mars retrograde. The Mars retrograde does not begin until 9/9. Remember that guy, 999 guy. What was his name? He's some chairman of some big department now, who would steal things from comic books. Herman someone. 9/9. That's how you remember. Mars goes retrograde in your sign on 9/9. But long before that happens, the first real bell ringing of Mars retrograde, I'll take these in the other order in which they're happening, is July 14, when Mars is conjunct Chiron. My assessment is, and I have written and I'll keep writing for Aries and Aries rising over and over again, that when the first 2 weeks of July, the entire month of July, but let's say between July 10th and July 20th, take notes on what's happening in your life. Take notes on your health. Take notes on the world situation and how you're responding to it. Take notes on your fear level. Take notes on your health. Very important with Chiron. I'll say it a couple of more times. What surfaces around July 10th through 20 for you is what, and this is especially for Aries and Aries rising, is what the Mars retrograde is going to be about. The Mars retrograde happens July, August, September, 2 months later. In this world, 2 months, everybody forgets everything in 2 months. Nobody freaking remembers what happened 2 months ago. Remember what happened July 14, because when this retrograde proceeds, you're going to need that information, and you'll be given information that will prove to be helpful for you. The retrograde of Mars, and any retrograde, particularly in your sign, is an internal quest. It's also likely to bring previous people in your life back into your life, and and generally is a time for a review of your reality, a complete review. And there's Mars is the ruling planet of Aries. This is very interesting to have the ruling planet of Aries retrograde in Aries, especially if you're Aries or Aries rising. And therefore, you get an experience to do some profound inner work. We all need to do that. And this thing that the internet does of ripping us outside of ourselves, the most adharmic thing in the world, to be ripped outside of yourself, is going to be met by the quest of Mars retrograde in Aries to invite you back into yourself and to do some form of soul retrieval within yourself. Okay, that's an important one, and remember that it's it is a rare thing. Mars is very rarely retrograde. It's therefore very rarely retrograde in any one sign. This is going to be the last Mars retrograde in Aries for a long time. Take advantage of this. Use this and use it well. Okay, before that happens, Venus is going to be retrograde in Gemini. And for you, this is the retrograde of think locally, act locally. Gemini is the third place from Aries. There's 1, that's Aries. There's 2, that's Taurus. That's 3, that's Gemini. And that is the house associated with one's local environs, one's local community. It starts with everything that is across the courtyard or down the hall. Your neighbors, your brothers, your sisters, I believe your cousins, so that's cousins are thought of as a sixth house thing. But it's those with whom you live in the family compound and in your apartment building and in your neighborhood and all the places that you walk. So while we could expand the realm of the third house into nearby places that you drive, let's first think about it as the most local thing to you. And there is going to be, as we are seeing now, a massive reevaluation of the local world. Yes, the big world is changing, but really those changes are pointing us to our local and immediate environment. And to take care of our local and immediate environment, to tend to our local and immediate environment. And one of the most interesting things about I forgot all about Sphinx and the aspect pattern, is that Venus goes retrograde conjunct Vesta. And what Vesta is, among other things, including the relation, the reference to the Vestal virgins and the reference to devotion, is the central organizing principle of existence. And for you, the Venus retrograde conjunct Vesta says that the central organizing principle of existence is your immediately local surroundings. It is a suggestion. It is an indication of what you're likely to discover is so, and it is what you might call power information that is not purchasable. You can't, you can only get this from certain sources who actually understand it, and the organizing principle of your life must be a human principle. And it must be a local principle. Do not go far-flung out into the world. I realize it's not that easy right now at this particular day to go far-flung out into the world, but spend this precious time that Venus is going to be retrograde between what is it? Between now I finally memorize this, May 13 and June 25, basically the last 6 weeks of the springtime. walking around locally. Figure out who and what is in your neighborhood. This may at some future time be a matter of survival. Let's expand the concept of Gemini now to what third house, to what does not have to be shipped in a truck, what you can just personally go to and get. Local farms in your area, for example. All the local things in your approximately nearby region that you might encounter on a day of doing errands, right? Not a special trip. We're going to go and we're gonna rescue this dog in Montana, so we're gonna drive across the country and we're gonna go fetch the dog, bring him back to Montana. He's gonna have a new happy life in Kingston. That's not what I mean. I mean in the course of daily routine errands. That's also the third house. And so you want to stretch that a little bit and make sure that you become highly conscious of your region during this time. You are likely to run into old neighbors, meet people that you knew in the past and come out of the woodwork, and keep them. Get to know them. Get to love them. When we're done pretending that staying apart, healthy people staying away from each other is somehow going to help us and not harm us. It's doing much more harm than good right now. Keeping the healthy people isolated, not helping anything. When we get over that, make your home the place where people come to eat dinner. Turn your home into the local gathering spot for your community of friends and immediate family. Take leadership in this way. Part of this is the social leadership of Saturn in Aquarius, right? Saturn's entering Aquarius. Aquarius is your 11th house. That's your circle of friends. And so where there is Saturn, you are being called to take leadership in your life. Aries people are very good at initiating things. Get some help so you can culminate and make them happen. There are many other factors that keep talking about these same basic ideas, but I would sum up by saying that acting as if to hold the world together is also acting as if to be an integrated person and to hold yourself together and to be respectful of your own interior ecology and then the way in which everything all that you encounter, all that you touch, all that you see, as in the Pink Floyd song, all you make, all you destroy, right? All that you buy, beg, borrow, or steal, is you. It's all about you. So how you treat yourself is how you treat the world. How you treat the world is how you treat yourself. And to take leadership in your social life, to invent the ideal social life for yourself and for those who are turned on by your idea of the ideal social life. This is crucial. This is very important to have now, because the world is, owing to all of this digital technology and what is likely to be, we're now coming out of the first of all of these efforts to alienate, isolate, and make us be afraid to breathe the same air. Come on. We've been living with viruses since forever. They came delivered on meteorites. They are the most important thing on this planet. And furthermore, we are all breathing the same air. I personally like to take Henrietta under the covers. She's down there. And breathe. Just breathe with her. Hang out and breathe. And look at her adorable little black nose this far from mine. And we are breathing the same air. This is a fact of existence. This is how we are alive. All of our bodies are really one body. We are exchanging data, information, viral, bacterial material, oxygen, and carbon dioxide all the time in food and pissing and shitting, and it goes in rivers, and it comes back out, and there's no separating us. We just appear temporarily to be separated. So embody this idea that we are all one being in one place, and play with it and experiment with it, and you will have an idea of the Dharma in your own life. All right. Well begun is halfway done. I've completed the introduction, and always the most important sign, Aries. I did something different this time, which is I made sure that I did a 45-minute warm-up video before Aries, so that I can make all my mistakes in that video, and then do this one a little bit better. All right, listen, thank you for listening. Every single sign in this series has something to offer people under every sign. So if you've got them, watch them. I'm going to do my best to keep them all fun and different and interesting. All right, lots of love, and bye for now.